I'm almost convinced that the inmates will, if they don't already, they will find out. Usually they do what they're charged with or what they've been convicted of and pled guilty to. And that's not good for prison because people that are convicted of children tend to get it the worst in prison versus people that are charged with crimes of violence against adults.
So, with the mass information, the mass documentation, all the pictures, and the who, what, where of what has been released to the public, there's just been so much. Some of it is absolutely devastating. I touched on it a little bit in my prior video where I was talking about Kevin Franke and his second police interview in particular, where he was alluding to the fact that he thought that he was seeing, supernatural things, and that Jodi's house was haunted, and that Jodi was literally possessed, and that he was acting as a sort of an exorcist. It honestly, it was just wild. It was so strange to listen to.
The moment she showed up at my house, just the weirdest crap started happening. Lights turning on and off, sounds of people walking in walls, and sounds like footprints going up walls and across the ceiling, and like stuff floating around, and it was weird, and I hated it. And I became the resident exorcist. That was the title I came up with myself. I thought it was kind of funny, but it was my job to go and give her blessings whenever she started to go into a trance and go into possession.
But with all the evidence that's been coming out, a lot of us have now seen Ruby Franke's diary, in which she was going into detail about what exactly she was doing, the punishments that her kids had to go through. And one of the things that I will say about this diary is that within it, she liked to take control. She liked to take control over what her kids were doing. She would dish out punishments. And it was all a case of breaking them down. So I do take a lot of joy in when I was listening to the Law and Crime. They put out a video yesterday, I think, and there was a public defendant on there who was talking about what life is going to be like behind bars for Jodi and Ruby, talking specifically about the fact that they're really going to have to watch themselves, that inmates are going to know who they are. They're not going to take too kindly to them because they have been convicted of this and exactly what they have done. But she does go into a lot of detail about things that we have suspected before about, could Jodi create a little circle around her? I kind of thought that may be a path that she does go down, trying to create a little group, have people almost serving her.
Because they're convicted of very serious, very upsetting charges. And you have to think about the fact that when people get involved in the criminal justice system, a lot of the times they're coming with a certain level of trauma their own selves. If they identify with their victims, Ruby's children at all, that could put Ruby and Jodi at serious risk of danger. And so they'll probably be supervised by the correctional officer.
For me, reading the diary entries just made me feel like she was stripping away their identity. She wanted full control over them. She was documenting everything she was putting those kids through. It was just absolutely horrendous. So I do find it beautifully ironic how she is now going to be stuck in a situation where she has no control. She has no self of identity anymore because she is well and truly trapped. It's going to be very regimented. And it was really interesting listening to someone talk about what their experiences could be going into prison. Going from jail to prison is going to be quite a big step up. It's going to be a big culture shock, even just going from jail to prison. So I just want to break down what this lady was saying because it was really quite interesting.
And it was horrible. It was torturous last night, hearing the screaming and the banging and people. It's like, okay, that's upsetting. But the most upsetting thing is that I am completely misunderstood. That is the most horrible feeling.
So there's a public defendant who was on the Law and Crime Network, and she goes into some detail about the fact that Because Ruby and Jody are, high profile, they are well known, this has been a very big case. There is a very, very, very high chance, I'm pretty sure she said, I have no doubt that the other inmates who are going to be in prison already will know about them coming in. And because of the nature of what exactly they've been charged with, they are probably going to have to be heavily monitored for a little bit, purely because people who are charged with doing that to children, are not liked in society, are still not liked in the prison system.
Is it possible that some of the inmates already in prison now know Ruby and Jody and what they've done?
Oh, it's highly possible. I'm almost convinced that the inmates will, if they don't already, they will find out. Usually they do what they're charged with or what they've been convicted of and pled guilty to. And that's not good for prison because people that are convicted of abusing children tend to get it the worst in prison versus people that are charged with crimes of violence against adults.
And we did have that call from, was it Ruby to, I can't remember who it was, when I think she was in jail. She was literally only in jail at this point. And she was saying on the phone that she could just hear, people screaming and banging, and it was worrying her. I mean, I can't really see Ruby. I can imagine Jody, okay? I can imagine Jody kind of like forming a little group. And I think I said this ages ago, right at the very beginning, before we knew exactly all the details. Before we said all that, I was thinking, if she ends up in prison, I reckon she'll just, start like another little group, like try and start another little cult within like the prison system. Ruby has just always struck me as someone who is just completely up her own arse, and I'm sure Jody is as well, 110%. But I feel like Jody has that kind of like ruthlessness, psychoness about her, which I mean evidently has come out more and more and more with Ruby. I can't really imagine Ruby like setting up a little group and becoming a little like cult leader within this prison, but I can imagine Jody doing it. Sorry if I'm going off on a speculation, but this is actually what they were talking about. Once again, this is what they were then talking about in the Law and Crime video, where they then went on and said that they could in fact see Jody kind of doing just this.
How do you create a new community in prison, or is it possible that they'll be isolated because of their crimes?
That's on a case-by-case basis and a personality basis. With Jody Hildebrand, she seems to have this type of personality that draws people in, and she'll probably, more than people with those personalities do, tend to try to get a group around themselves and get people to do things for them. But the thing that they're going to have to realize is that they are coming from a different socioeconomic background than many of the women that are in the prison with them. So they'll probably be seen in an adversarial way, privileged people that have the ability to stay out of prison. And so for that reason, they will likely for the first few years that they're there be somewhat isolated until they get used to how you should behave in prison, because there is a culture around that. And people that kind of come in with expectations that they'll be treated as though, they're higher class, and the people that are in there are somehow better than the people that are in there usually tend to fare worse, charges aside.
Yeah. Considering Jody, when she was being given her sentencing, the judge basically said to her, you've shown no remorse during this whole period. Jody well and truly believes everything. This is the reason why I genuinely think that she is psycho enough to try and set up another cult-like thing. I just can't really imagine her getting out anytime soon, because they do also go into detail about, the way that you behave in prison can then affect the parole, what you choose to do with your time. I can kind of imagine Ruby ambling along and helping out and doing a few things just to, be in God's good graces, but I just can't imagine Jody doing that. I don't think she'll ever stand up and say, I did bad, because based on what the judge was saying, up until she got sentenced, she still firmly believed that she was in the right.
After being caught, Ms. Hildebrand has shown little to no remorse for her actions. In telephone conversations that will be provided in full to the Board of Pardons and Parole, and which she knew to be recorded, she's repeatedly claimed that she is the victim and the children are the perpetrators. She has gone so far as to say that the things said in this proceeding and covered by the media today will be full of lies.
So I think this is what everyone is trying to allude to, in the fact that they can kind of foresee Jodie being a, rising cult leader within the prison system. Like, I don't actually think that's even far-fetched to say. We have people out here saying the inmates already know who they are. They're going to have to be heavily watched. Both Jodie and Ruby are going to have to be kept well separated. And they're going to have to be heavily watched because they're going to become a mass target for, people are going to target them within the prison walls. And they 110% deserve it. Of course they do. Of course they bloody well do. 110% deserve it. But that does still mean that they're going to have to be watched. Will Jodie ever live out her fantasy of becoming a rising cult leader after all is said and done? I don't really know, but I can kind of see that's the route she's going to go down. But maybe I'm just jumping the gun and I'm thinking a bit too far into it. But it was really interesting just to hear someone else sort of clarify what a lot of us were thinking. And what makes me feel so sure about this is, number one, Jodie is just like completely unremorseful based on what they have been saying when she was been sentenced, and also based on like what was Kevin saying about her having, what was it, possessions and needing to be blessed and all of this, mumbo jumbo. Is she going to be doing that in prison? Is this going to be something that it'll be very interesting to see if she carries on doing that when she's in prison, or is she only haunted when she's at her own house? I don't know. Me personally, I'm not buying it. But I don't tend to believe in that kind of stuff anyway. That whole interview was just wild. Yeah, is she going to be like pretending to be possessed when she's in prison? Because I can't imagine that will go down too well with the other inmates. Only time will tell. I'm sure we'll find out if anything happens to either of them when they're in prison. That's pretty much all I wanted to say on this topic of conversation. I'm really sorry this video is a little bit too late. It is what it is. We got the Easter holidays right now. But I found the Law and Crime video really quite interesting. And it is a total 100% possibility. Jodie could be using her time to start another cult, and they could be in serious trouble right now, already in prison. Who really knows? I hope you guys have a wonderful day wherever you are in this world. Take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and I will catch up with you guys in the next video.